I've heard of people that put up to 3% salt in their pizza doughs. The problem is that it slows the fermentation down. More salt works against the yeast, and at a certain point, the salt will actually destroy the dough. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to make a dough, pizza dough, what we call the Neapolitan dough, a classic Naples style dough. Flour, water, salt, yeast, nothing else. I've got some basic bread flour in here. You could use any of your favorite brands. You could use all-purpose flour. You could use, quote, bread flour. This particular flour comes from our friends from Central Milling, and they're in California, but they make a 00 flour that's kind of in the Italian style, but it's their version. And it actually absorbs more water than the Italian flour. I'm putting a little instant yeast in here, which I'd already measured. This is about 22 ounces of flour. I have salt, which is, for this amount, for 22 ounces of flour, is about a third of an ounce of salt, and it's measured by percentage. We base it on percentage by weight. So what I did was I took 22.5 ounces of flour, which is the main ingredient, and I multiplied it by 2%. And this one calls for about 15 ounces, approximately 15 ounces of water. So I'm gonna stir it, and this is not a strong spoon. I've got a stronger spoon here, I'll use this. Okay, so I'm gonna stir this with the wooden spoon, and what I'm doing is I'm hydrating the dough. I wanna hydrate the dough so that all the flour disappears. I'm gonna put a little water on my hands, because that'll keep the dough from sticking to my hands, and I'm just gonna finish it off by hand like this. Okay, and now I've got a very coarse, shaggy dough, but it's also a little bit wet. So I want to get some of that water inside, but really I've accomplished what I need to do at this stage. We're going to put this dough aside, and we're going to actually let it rest. So, and this dough won't be for today, this will be for tomorrow, because it takes at least 24 hours for this dough, to kind of ferment and develop great flavor. The dough that we're going to use, which is right here, I made it last night, and it had all night to ferment, and I pulled it out about 2 hours ago to start to slowly wake up and rise. I'm going to make a little oil slick. I'm going to dump this dough in the oil slick so it doesn't stick to the board, and then I'm going to stretch and fold the dough. And I'm going to do this 4 times over the course of this demo, and each time we do the stretch and fold, you'll see that the dough will change. It'll be as if it was being mixed. Okay, so we've got this coarse, shaggy dough. I'm going to do 1 stretch and fold right now. I'm putting a little oil on my hand so it doesn't stick. I'm going to stretch it and fold it over and flop it over. It's still coarse and shaggy. It's not going to change too much after the first stretch and fold. But what will happen is, after each cycle that we do this, already you can see it's getting a little bit smoother. And I'm just going to cover it so it doesn't dry. It's more developed than it was a few minutes ago, just because sitting there, the gluten is starting to form. You can see little threads of gluten kind of holding it together, but it's not developed enough. It typically takes about 5 to 8 minutes for the gluten to develop. So we're going to cover this, we're going to put this aside, and we'll come back, and every 5 minutes or so we'll do another stretch and fold, and I'll do it 4 times. And by the end we should have a fairly smooth dough that can then be divided into dough balls that can be used for pizza tomorrow. So that's what I did with this. I made this last night, I divided it today. I'm going to make it right on our peel. We've got this beautiful new Pizza Quest pizza peel. We've got our logo, we're pretty excited about having that. Let me just move that out of the way so I don't knock it over. And I'm going to put some flour down on the peel to keep the dough from sticking to the peel, because as you saw, it's a little bit sticky. We want the dough to be very tacky, not necessarily sticky, but the more supple the dough is, the easier it's going to be to spread it out. So I've got this dough. It's been now waking up. It's really in good shape. I'm going to put a little flour on my hands just so that I can tap this dough down and spread it out that way, but I don't want to overhandle it. I don't want to squeeze the dough. I don't want to fold it over, because then the gluten will tighten up. And I've just spent the last hour and a half trying to wake it up so the gluten can relax, so that it will spread out. So right now, I can get it out to here, and I can get it a little further in a second, but I want to get my other ingredients ready. So we've got some eggs. So I'm going to do 1 in here like this. And we'll individually. And in addition to the pancetta, which we cooked yesterday, we have this beautiful pancetta that we got from La Quercia, one of our sponsors of the event. They provided us with all sorts of great cured meats. They sent us something called guanciale, which is like bacon, but it comes from a different part of the pig. The bacon comes from the pork belly. The guanciale comes from the jowl of the pig. It's been a sort of a secret ingredient in Italian cooking for a long time. Now some of the better restaurants are using it. They're very similar looking. This is the pancetta. It looks like bacon. If you see it sideways, it looks like bacon. It's beautiful. This is the guanciale. As you can see, very similar, a little more fattiness and a different flavor. Usually the way guanciale is prepared is it's cured in like a rub of spices, paprika and other spices, and it ages in a refrigerator, like a dry rub for about a week to 2 weeks. And the rub flavors it, and then you treat it like bacon. We've now got, for our dough, I've got to get the dough the rest of the way so we can get it in the oven. So I'm going to stretch the crust. I'm going to lift it. The way I like to do it is lift it and kind of let gravity do some of the work. I put my thumb in the edge of here. Now, some pizza makers just like to do the whole thing right on the peel and just spin it around. Certain flour, Italian 00 flour, it's easier to do that with. American flour tends to be a little bit more elastic. So it needs to relax, and then it needs to be handled very gently and coaxed out. Now I've got this pretty far along. I might give it one more stretch. This is about a 9-ounce piece of dough. Let's go back to our pizza dough. Let's do another stretch and fold. We're gonna pull it, stretch it, and fold it over. Pull it, and stretch it over. Pull it, stretch it over from all 4 sides, and then flip it over. Again, much smoother, not ready yet, but much smoother. The piece of dough itself, without even mixing the dough, look how much stronger it is. Look at that gluten development. It's really almost ready. Now it's strong enough to hold what we call the window pane, the membrane of thin dough. That means there to see that little hole, that's where the gluten just isn't quite ready. Pull it, threads of gluten. That's pure protein, gluten protein. We're gonna cover it. Come back and see it one more time. One more final stretch, and then we're gonna put the pizza in the oven.